What is love? The main way it's understood today runs something like this. When you really love somebody, it means that you will do everything in your power to make them happy. It means accepting and affirming whatever way they choose to live their life. It means excusing whatever harm they do as a mistake and then encouraging them, no matter how bad it was, that deep down they are really a good person. It means giving them a second and third and fourth and on chance, because after all, they deserve it. This has also become the way that God's love is understood. But this isn't love, at least not the way Jesus understood it. Yes, God loves us unconditionally. He accepts us just as we are. But precisely because he loves us so much, he doesn't accept and affirm everything we do. Often he's repulsed by it. He's repulsed by the harm that we cause ourselves and other people, the very people that he loves so dearly. And because he loves us so dearly, he won't leave us where he finds us. For our own sake, he challenges us to be radically better people. He challenges us to be all that he created us to be, to know the joy, to experience the joy that he always intended for us to experience. Many people struggle with the idea of God's wrath, the notion of God's wrath, the idea of a God of love who could become so enraged with his creatures when they fall short. It seems morally repulsive. But this is often driven by a deep-seated confusion. We often unwittingly associate ideas from pagan mythology with our notions of God's wrath. And so as a result, we kind of understand God's wrath as God throwing a cosmic temper tantrum, as God needing to assuage his anger, to get it off his chest, so to speak, the way that human beings often do and the gods of mythology made in our image do. But as J.I. Packer said in his classic book, Knowing God, this is a monstrous distortion. Wrath, God's wrath, rightly understood, is really the holy revulsion of God's being at the harm sin and evil causes us. And this is the only reaction a God of love could possibly have. It's the only morally right reaction. How should God react when a child is being sexually abused? How should God act when somebody is lynched for the color of their skin? How should God react when a terrorist blows innocent people up to bits? A God who isn't outraged when his children are hurt so deeply, wounded so deeply by sin and evil, is a God who is utterly indifferent. A God without wrath is a God without love. Standing a mere 5 foot 5 inches tall, Brother Kelly was the first principal I worked for, and he was one of the scariest people I ever met. Not only were all the students in the school I taught at, terrified of him, but so were much of the faculty. You didn't want to incur Brother Kelly's wrath. The one class that he taught each year happened to be in the classroom right across from mine. Lucky me. Every few days I would hear him tearing into one of his students, yelling at one of his students. As he'd be reaming them out, even football players twice his size would be shaking in their shoes. So you would think the kids in his class detested him. They hated his guts. Just the opposite. They adored him, as they on many occasions would go out of their way to tell me he was their favorite teacher, hands down. See, what they understood was how genuinely Brother Kelly cared for them. And when he'd be in the middle of one of his tirades, he'd often say something like this. He'd say, "Mr. So-and-so," he always called him Mr. when they were in trouble, and he knew the name of every single kid in the school, over 800 kids. "Mr. So-and-so, I'm not going to let you get away with that because I know you're better than that." See, the message was loud and clear. He was so hard on them because he loved them so deeply. He cared so much about them. It would have been easier for him to let things go, to be the popular teacher, the cool principal. But they understood, what came through so clearly for them was they understood that he was so hard on them because He cared for them. He wouldn't let anything go. He wouldn't let them slack off or be disrespectful to each other, not just because he wanted them to thrive academically, but much more importantly, because he wanted them to thrive as human beings. He wanted the best for them, and they clearly saw that. Brother Kelly's wrath was a reflection of his deep love for those kids. This is love. This is what God's love is like. God's wrath, his holy revulsion, flows out of his deep, passionate, fierce love for us. So what do you think about God's wrath? Are you morally repulsed by the notion, the idea? Go to the Contact EJ page of the Raising Jesus website and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you haven't had a chance yet, please like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I truly appreciate all the support all of you have been giving me. Thank you.